So in this video, I want to talk about the anime and partially the light novel, So I'm a Spider, So What? And the reason being is because it's a series that I really love, but it's also a series I really hate. And not for the reasons that people are going to assume. I don't hate it because I think it's a bad story, or bad characters, or bad world building, or anything like that. The reason why I hate it is because of how bad the anime kind of did it dirty. Now, for those that have probably been on my main channel, these videos are long lost into the sort of sands of time. I talked about So I'm a Spider, So What? Pretty much weekly as each episode was coming out. It was a 2-core series, and so there was a lot to talk about. And I was also reading the light novels as well, and I always said in the early stages when the CGI was first showing that I didn't have a problem with the CGI. I thought the CGI was fine at the beginning, and to be very clear here, at the beginning of the story itself. But then as it got into the second core and it made its way near to the end of the second core, that is when things started getting a little bit awkward, where the CGI started to get a lot more sloppier. Animations, like I remember Sophia doing the whole back sort of motion, and it just looks so awkward and janky, and it really disappointed me because it's such a good series, it's such a good story to work with. But also there are a bunch of other things that other fans complain about that I didn't have a problem with, like for example the other kids not focusing on the Spider, the Demon Lord and Sophia and all that. You had all the hero group and all that, and some episodes they would focus on them, some episodes they'd focus on the Spider, or a little bit of mixture of both. And so a lot of fans were always complaining that, oh, well, they didn't care about those. And I understand that, but it's also important to build the world, build the characters, and understand why they're there. There's some things that maybe they didn't have to completely show, especially in the light novel. There are some side stories that you don't have to really show, but it's still fine nonetheless. It's what the author decided, and I take my hat off to the author for trying to do something different when it comes to a series, because a lot of power fantasy isekais that just turn into kind of more of a copy-paste style story. And sure, they might do well for the most part, but they are just very generic in themselves. And I'm not talking all isekais again. I've watched a lot of isekais. I watch, at least probably 4 to 5 every season. So I've seen a wide range of different styles have been done. And it's nice to try and see authors try to do a little bit of a spin, which I think is also funny, because every time an author tries to do something different, whether it's something a little bit wackier or something, they always get punished by the kind of the Puritans, the big anti-tubers that sit there and go, oh, why do that? Why not just do what's tried and true? And then when the tried and true method is done, they then turn around and complain, oh, it's all the same. Why do these authors not try and do something unique and different? It's just like, no matter what you do, you're doomed if you do, you're doomed if you don't. And that's why I don't really take a lot of anti-tubers particularly too serious that are larger, because a lot of the times they just kind of say what is needed for the moment to kind of please the crowd. And I'm sorry if that offends people, but that is, in my opinion, the reality of the situation. A lot of big anti-tubers just say what the crowd wants to hear, and then boom, you get the views. And that's how it works. But for me, I like to put my own honest thoughts out there. And sure, in the early stages of Spider, the CGI I didn't have a problem with. I know CGI is a big thing that people do not like, and that's fine. But later on, yeah, things got very choppy. But the story is so phenomenal. But I will say the only negative aspect about the story is the fact that it is primed to be spoiled. And that is one thing I really hated, was the community in general went out of their way to try and spoil anything you're talking about. Because I remember when I talked about the series and I was recommending, I'll say, if you're into So I'm a Spider, So What? I believe that a lot of people would like Spider because, hey, it's a main protagonist transformed into a creature. But then people had to interject and go, well, actually, the Spider does this, that. And it's just like, great. Thank you for spoiling my first impressions, thoughts on it, and dumping that because you wanted to do, well, actually, moment. And so that's one of the downsides, but I still stand by that statement that if you like Slime, you'll like Spider, because they have a lot of similarities in what they try to do, but they do things also very uniquely different, and that's good. You're always going to have some similarities, because it's a massive anime industry. There's so many stories out there. You're always going to have little strings that kind of connect, that make them feel slightly similar in other areas and different. But that also leads into another point. The Spider and the Slime community constantly at each other's throats, saying one copied the other, even though the authors got along and they collaborated on a multitude of projects. But apparently the communities wanted to fight each other, which just to me shows that the communities care more about trying to make themselves feel more empowered than actually just enjoying what they have in front of them. And that's a big issue as a whole when it comes to the anime community, is the great isekai war, where every isekai series or every isekai community in their own little bubble tries to attack each other, and it really serves no purpose other than to fracture the anime community and then have outsiders sit there and insult the anime community and belittle us, and then everyone's too busy infighting to actually sit there and go, hey, that's BS. So I think it's disappointing, because I like both series for their own strengths and weaknesses. But yeah, it is what it is. I love the light novels. I wouldn't really spend as much time with the community, but the story is great. I mean, I love this power fantasy that you go into, where you have a cast of students, they get transported to an alternative world, they've all been fractured into different places, and then you've got the teacher as well that's trying to play this role of being the teacher again in this world, and the students, some of them don't really want to play by those rules, some of them want to vie for control, some of them want to play their little fantasies out pretending to be the heroes, and some just want to survive. And that's what I find really kind of good about the series, is that it does put a more realistic human element to these characters, because at the end of the day, if you had an entire classroom just shoved into an isekai world, some of them would just let go of their old responsibilities and their old mindset and just be like, okay, this is a new opportunity, while some will try and latch onto their old responsibilities, like the teacher, who she thinks that it's her responsibility to protect the students, but in reality, is she really protecting the students? Or is she just trying to protect her pride and ego? That's the question to be asked. And then you've got the other student that wanted to be the big hero with his little gaggle of girls and friends, and it comes down to the thing of, is he really being a hero, or is he just trying to live out his own fantasy of righteousness and ignore all of reality? That's what I really love about the series. It makes you explore all these different thought processes. Maybe not everyone does, but for me, when I read and watch the anime, it's just something that I kind of think about constantly, and it gets your emotions revving, like Potamus. I absolutely hate him as a character, but he is so well written, which is funny to talk about, because every time I talk about how I hate him as a person but love him as a well-written character, I always get the comment of, oh, but he's a well-written character, and it's like, I literally said that right after I said I don't like him as a person. So it's just it's always just funny that if you're ever critical of certain characters in the series, depending on which ones you kind of call out, people get very defensive about them, even though they don't know what they're defending. So I think it's a great story, and I will also say the power component to it as well. This is something I talked about in one of my light novel reviews, so check that out if you want to see all my light novel breakdowns on it that are coming. One of the things I really love is the fact that, yes, it has a lot of power fantasy. It has this insane amount of power that's just constantly building up. Some of these characters are getting like godlike type powers, but it still feels realistic enough for you to understand how they got there so much. And I mean, I'm not talking like realistic in the sense of it making sense in a science component, but it just being realistic that you can understand how they got from point A to point B and why they're able to do that kind of stuff, especially with Wyatt. I mean, you can see the journey they've gone through. You can see all the different creatures they've defeated and how they've gone through one journey after the next, after the next, after the next, and every little trial that they've gone through. It's just, that's what I really like. Compared to other isekais or other power fantasies, it's not even just isekais, there are a lot of shonens that do this as well, where you have this, like, what I would call power creep, where characters get stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger, then the villains need to become stronger and stronger, until the point where they become, like, godlike, and then they become, like, multi-universe kind of things, and at that point, to me, I kind of lose a lot of interest. But what I like about Spider is, even though a lot of that kind of stuff is getting to godlike kind of situations, there's still something big at stake. That was the overall objective that they were always trying to get to. They had to get to this point of just insane power, because the goal that they were always after, or kind of after they got partway through the story, is still there. And so that's the other thing. It still feels grounded. It still feels realistic of how and why they're at the stage that they're at and where they're going to. So I think the power component is very well done. As far as also backstories go, there's a lot of great backstories for all the different characters. Some that I like, some that I don't care about. I wouldn't say any of them are not, like, none of them are poorly written. It's just some of them I just don't care about as much. And that's fine, because you're going to like some characters more than others. And that's with every single type of story. You're going to like some characters more than others. But the series as a whole is a completed story, and that is good as well, because it being a completed story means that if if you want to get into the source material, you can read from volumes 1 through all the way to 16, and I do highly recommend that. I do recommend reading from the beginning and going all the way through, but I also do recommend, and again, selfless plug, I will be uploading the light novel reviews of all of the volume reviews of So I'm a Spider, So What, so have that to look forward to as well, me talking about what I like about certain volumes, what I don't like about certain volumes, and just the overall character development and world building that goes on in the series. So I think it's a highly recommended series, a series where you see a cast of characters transported to an alternative world, them having to fend for themselves, them having this whole ecosystem, this system that they're hearing these voices, different religions, different groups, different powers, certain elves out there that are very, very much got some nefarious goals in mind, and seeing all these power places move into place, and a demon lord that has an objective. And the thing that I really find interesting is this whole question of what is good and evil, because in some senses, when I look at the heroes in the story, they're not really sure. Some of them can play out their roles of trying to do the right thing, but that's the thing as well, is that they don't really know the bigger picture. They're kind of just fighting because they've been told to fight, and sure, they're the hero of the story, but are they really doing the right thing? In my view, kind of no, but what they believe they're doing is right and noble because that's all they know, that's all they've been fed. And so it comes down to a situation of what would happen, and again, the whole point of this video isn't to spoil the story, but more just to give you a taste of what I think and feel about it, is that what would happen is certain characters found out the truth of the reality of how this world functions, the energy systems, the leveling, the voices, how all of it functions, and who are these big powerful gods that are standing above playing their little games. Certain character named D. How will they react when they find out the reality of the situation, when they get certain skills maxed out and all that information is dumped on their shoulders? How will they respond? That is the thing that I love about the series. It makes you wonder things as you're going along, and it's always got an interesting little spin just waiting around the corner for you to just gnaw your teeth into. So again, I'd love to know your thoughts in the comment section down below. What do you think of the anime? What do you think of the light novels? Definitely consider checking out my light novel playlist of So I'm a Spider, So What. And again, if you like this video, hit the like, subscribe, and I'll see you beautiful nerds in the next video.